What's up, Falcons Nation? It's your boy Jew coming at you with another Atlanta Falcons video. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up. In today's video, I want to give you guys some quick Atlanta Falcons news. Then I also want to talk about the Atlanta Falcons starting training camp. But if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you'll know when I've done Atlanta Falcons content. Hit that like button for your boy. I do appreciate each and every one of you guys for continuing to tune into the channel, continuing to share out my content on all the social media platforms. If you would like to follow your boy on Twitter, you can follow me at Jew Talk Sports. If you would like to follow me on Instagram, you also can follow me at Jew Talk Sports. If you would like to donate to my channel to help grow my channel, you can donate to my Cash App, which is also the $ Jew Talk Sports. But with that being said, your boy is on the road to 2,000 subscribers. So definitely continue to share out this content to all your friends and family. But with that being said, let's jump right into the video. So first off, in Atlanta Falcons news, 3 players were placed on the PUP list yesterday. Dante Fowler Jr., outside linebacker, Caleb McGarry, my right tackle, and Deidre Sanat, who plays the defensive tackle position. All 3 of those guys were placed on the PUP list yesterday, which is the unable to perform list. Dante Fowler Jr., they said, had some type of COVID. He was placed in COVID protocol. So I'm not too sure if he has COVID or maybe he's come into contact with someone who had COVID, but he's in COVID protocol. They didn't disclose Caleb McGarry, his injury or why he was placed on the PUP list. And Deidre Sanat, they said he had an upper body injury and that they don't expect him to be back for a while. So I do expect this year out of Dante Fowler, some big things out of Dante Fowler this year. He battled injury last season. He had a disappointing season last year with only 3 sacks. This year he did restructure his contract. And he is playing for, the bag or playing for an extension this season. So I do expect Dante Fowler Jr. to have a big year. It didn't start off the way that I expected it to with him being placed on the PUP list. But I do expect Dante Fowler Jr. to get back out there soon. They're at training camp. Yesterday when they interviewed Arthur Smith, he did state that guys like Caleb McGarry and Dante Fowler Jr. are going to have to compete for starting roles and compete for playing time. So I do expect both of those guys to come back healthy really soon. And I expect Dante Fowler Jr. this year to take his game to the next level and raise the bar, coming back healthy from that ankle injury last season. And with Caleb McGarry, he's another guy that Arthur Smith mentioned in his press conference yesterday that he's going to have to battle it out for that starting right tackle role. Him and a guy like Jalen Mayfield, who was drafted this year at the right tackle position, those guys are going to have to battle it out at training camp. So I really expect it's going to be imperative that Dante Fowler Jr. and Caleb McGarry come out swinging, come back healthy, because we do have a new regime here and they want to prove to their new position coaches and to Arthur Smith that they're valuable pieces on this team. And I expect both of those guys to come back as starters this season. I do expect Caleb McGarry to man that right tackle role. I do believe he's going to win that starting role. And I do expect Dante Fowler to win one of the starting outside linebacker roles. But with that being said, I do want to also talk about training camp. Yesterday was the first training camp practice, and today was the second training camp practice. And I kind of just want to give my quick thoughts from what I'm hearing that's coming out of training camp and for what I've seen on the clips that I've seen of highlights from training camp. A couple players that stood out to me so far in training camp. Christian Blake, the wide receiver. I believe he's a 3rd-year wide receiver for our Atlanta Falcons. It looked like he made some great catches today at camp. It looks like he's one of those guys that's ready to take that next step and possibly be one of those guys that be the 3rd or 4th wide receiver on this Atlanta Falcons roster or depth chart. He's not a guy that is mentioned a lot when we talk about players that could possibly step up this year for the Atlanta Falcons, but he was one of the players in a lot of the highlights that was making some nice catches, a nice contested catches. And I do expect him to be a guy that steps up this season as a dark horse player that a lot of people are not talking about. Another player at training camp is Calvin Ridley. He looked really good out there running routes. As we know, Calvin Ridley did have a foot injury, and he had a minor surgery over the offseason. But he was out there running routes. He looked really crisp in his route running as usual, and his hands look really good out there. Another player that I noticed that popped out in some of the highlights is Kyle Pitts. He was out there running a lot of different routes for Matt Ryan and the other quarterbacks that we have out there, Felipe Franks and AJ McCarron. And Kyle Pitts looked really good, looked really crisp as well. Just like Calvin Ridley and his route running ability, he looked like a wide receiver out there running routes, getting in and out of his breaks really well. And they interviewed or talked to Matt Ryan, and he basically talked about how great Kyle Pitts can be in this league. He said that Kyle Pitts is really turning heads there at training camp, and that Kyle Pitts is, his hands are really good as far as catching the ball. Matt Ryan said he makes catching the ball look effortless. The way that he's able to adjust to footballs, whether the ball is low, whether the ball is thrown behind him, he's one of those guys that is a natural when it comes to catching a football. So I definitely think that those are three players so far in camp that have stood out to me. Calvin Ridley, Christian Blake, and Kyle Pitts. I've seen a lot of different highlights today as well. Deion Jones picking off Matt Ryan in one of the one-on-one reps they were doing with the running backs coming out of the backfield. Deion Jones is looking very crisp as usual in his coverage ability. He looked good in the one-on-one situations where he was covering guys out of the backfield. On the defensive side of things, there have been a lot of new faces on the defensive side of things. Jacob Tuioti-Mariner was a guy that I seen lining up in that outside linebacker role. Michael Walker is another guy that they showed who's also has bulked up and gained some weight. And he's a guy that's looking really good at camp so far as well, playing the outside linebacker position and lining up and rushing the passer and things of that nature. And I'm really excited so far from what I've seen and what I'm hearing coming out of camp. They interviewed Grady Jarrett, and he talked about he wants to prove himself this year. I expect some big things out of Grady Jarrett this year. I do believe he's the leader of this defense, and he's the engine of this defense and of that defensive line. And I do expect Grady Jarrett to be a Pro Bowler for the third consecutive year. Grady Jarrett is a top 5 defensive tackle in the NFL, and I do expect him to continue to take the next step. He talked about this year his goal is to get over 10 sacks in the season. He hasn't eclipsed 10 sacks so far, but he's setting the bar high this year, and he wants to be up there in the double-digit sack mark and double digits in tackles for loss. And I really expect Grady Jarrett to be one of those guys under Dean Pees' scheme, to be one of those guys that has another breakout season. Just looking and listening to what he was saying, he talked about Arthur Smith being one of those guys that's not into slogans and things of that nature, but he's all about the product and all about the results, going out there and putting out great product and going out there and putting out the winning effort that it takes to be a successful football team. So he did talk about, us not being so much about talk and about the fluff anymore, but us being a team that's going to go out there and prove it on the field. And he talked about the toughest players will play. And I really love that about Arthur Smith and this, the way that he's holding these players accountable and things of that nature. I really think that he's done a great job of getting these guys prepared for the season. And another thing that I took from training camp so far within the first 2 days is the tempo, the way that they have these guys out there moving. They have these guys out there jogging and running here and there. And the tempo of practice looks a lot different, looks a lot more structured than when Dan Quinn was here as the head coach. And I really think that that's going to pay huge dividends. I do think they're having these guys running hills and things of that nature and getting in shape. And I definitely think that this Atlanta Falcons team, they look a lot healthier, a lot stronger, a lot bigger. A lot of our players, Deion Jones and Michael Walker, are two guys that I've seen so far in training camp. These guys look like they bulked up over the offseason. It looks like whoever the new training staff is, as far as the weightlifting training staff and things of that nature, they're doing a good job of getting these guys, prepared for that long, grueling 17-game schedule. And I'm really excited so far from what I'm hearing out of camp. I really think that this Atlanta Falcons team is going to shock a lot of people. But those are the things that I've took so far in the first 2 days of training camp. Like I said, it's still really early in training camp, but I'm excited to see us, play these preseason games, to see these young guys get out there and be able to make plays, and to see what guys are going to stand out and step out into the spotlight. But with that being said, this be your boy Jew. You guys let me know what you think of the video. But as always, Falcons Nation, rise up. Like I said, if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, please hit that subscribe button for your boy if you enjoy my content. I'll have a lot more coming for you guys. But with that being said, as always, Falcons Nation, rise up. Peace.